The 20th century is often remembered for revolutions, technological leaps, and human ambition. Yet by its end, one problem seemed impossible to solve: drugs. What had once been tied to ritual, culture, and even medicine became a global curse. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the Iron Curtain fell not only for ideas and goods, but also for narcotics. In the early 1990s, Russia found itself vulnerable. Where once isolation had provided accidental protection, the new openness left Moscow exposed to a flood of substances that other nations had battled for decades. In this chaotic environment, a mysterious drug appeared. Its name spread through whispers: crocodile. What made it terrifying wasn't just its addictiveness, but the speed at which it destroyed lives. Addicts, police, and even doctors had never seen anything like it before. This was the start of one of Russia's most chilling true crime stories. It began in autumn 1991. Moscow's addicts grew restless as rumors spread of a new drug on the streets. Unlike heroin, this substance required only 2 or 3 injections to enslave a user completely. Within days, reports surfaced of sudden deaths. Friends injected together, one would pass out and never wake again. Dealers spoke in hushed tones, calling it crocodile. For investigators, the mystery deepened quickly. Each confiscated vial looked like ordinary water. It carried no odor, no color, nothing that revealed its danger. Yet those who used it often ended up in morgues. When samples were sent abroad for testing, the answers shocked experts. Inside was trimethylfentanyl, a synthetic opioid thousands of times stronger than morphine. Known elsewhere as China White, it had appeared in Russia seemingly overnight. But where had it come from? That question would set off one of the most urgent narcotics investigations in the country's history. Trimethylfentanyl was unlike anything Russian authorities had ever encountered. To understand its danger, scientists compared its potency. A single dose of morphine could dull pain, but the tiniest fraction of this chemical could kill. In fact, it was said to be 2,000 times more poisonous than cyanide. Just a pack of cigarettes filled with the powder could, in theory, intoxicate all of Moscow. The implications were terrifying. If traffickers distributed it widely, entire neighborhoods might collapse into chaos. At first, security services assumed it must have been imported. Yet new lab results revealed something far more disturbing: traces of phosgene, a chemical weapon once used in the First World War. The evidence suggested that this was no foreign import. It was being manufactured inside Russia itself. A joint task force between the FSK and MVD was formed. Their mission was clear: find the source before it was too late. By late 1992, investigators caught their first real break. Evidence pointed toward a network with ties to Azerbaijan. At the center was Oktay Babayev, a man with a criminal past who had since built a fortune through shady business dealings. His son, Umud, was a student at Moscow's medical academy and acted as courier. But the trail did not end with him. Phone taps and surveillance soon revealed another link: a young chemistry student named Andrei Gavrushin, known to his friends as Andy. Gifted and ambitious, Gavrushin had once represented the Soviet Union in school chemistry competitions. Now, at only 19, he was suspected of producing a drug that terrified entire communities. The police traced him to dorm room 534 at Moscow State University, where students came and went at strange hours. Inside, they believed, was not a hobbyist's chemistry set, but the laboratory of a deadly new empire. The first attempt to catch the group red-handed unfolded like a Cold War thriller. Undercover agents tracked couriers through the Moscow metro, waiting for a handoff at Kolomenskaya station. But at the critical moment, the suspects sensed surveillance and slipped away. Time and again, the same pattern repeated: suspicion, shadowing, but no arrests. By early 1993, frustration peaked. On January 14, 7 strike teams moved simultaneously across the city. Babayev was detained near the airport, Gavrushin inside his dormitory, and other associates in apartments scattered around Moscow. For the first time, the organization seemed cornered. Yet when police searched, they found no finished drugs. Only equipment, precursors, and scattered notes hinted at the scale of what had been produced. Without physical proof, charges could collapse. Investigators were left with an unnerving thought: somewhere out there, hidden from view, another lab might still be operating at full capacity. New information surfaced months later, pointing investigators eastward. A Kazan graduate named Danir Bayramov revealed the name of a fellow student, Alexei Alexeyev. At just 20, Alexeyev was another chemistry prodigy, a winner of national Olympiads. Unlike Gavryushin, he had not been recruited into Babaev's circle. Instead, he pursued his own experiments, inspired by a single book in the popular science series. From its pages, he reverse-engineered his own formula for trimethylphentanol. Alongside him was Renat Miftakov, who proved even more industrious. Before police closed in, Miftakov had already produced 600 grams of the substance, an unimaginable 500,000 lethal doses. Only a timely intervention by local mafia groups, fearful of police crackdowns on their other enterprises, prevented the mass distribution. The revelation horrified Moscow's investigators. The nightmare was not isolated to one dorm room. Across Russia, brilliant but reckless students were replicating the formula on their own. Then came the final twist. On May 24, 1993, the security services received an anonymous call. The voice on the line told them to check a cemetery in the outskirts of Kazan. Skeptical but desperate, they followed the lead. There, buried beneath a weathered stone in Samoserovo Cemetery, they uncovered plastic-wrapped jars containing chemicals. Tests confirmed their fear. It was trimethylphentanol, ready for refinement. The haul was staggering, enough precursor to manufacture nearly 2 tons of the deadly drug. For investigators, it was both a victory and a nightmare. The operation had prevented a catastrophic flood into Moscow. Yet the case also exposed an unsettling reality. These chemists were not foreign traffickers, but Russia's own youth, trained in its best universities. Even behind bars, their knowledge could not be contained. If scattered throughout the prison system, they could turn cells into laboratories. And from there, a new wave might rise again. What haunted the investigators most was the simplicity of it all. These young men had not needed sophisticated equipment, foreign suppliers, or hidden factories. With just a dorm room, everyday chemicals, and curiosity sharpened by textbooks, they had nearly unleashed one of the most lethal narcotics in the world. The cemetery discovery was not just a seizure, it was a warning. Russia had narrowly avoided disaster, but the recipe, once discovered, could never truly be erased. The story of trimethylphentanol in Russia was more than just a drug bust. It was a glimpse into a future that nearly arrived. A future where chemistry, not cartels, became the greatest threat to society. The students behind this operation were not hardened gangsters or shadowy foreign agents. They were ordinary young men, armed only with knowledge and ambition, and that may have been the most terrifying part of all. Authorities had stopped the immediate danger. The labs were dismantled, the chemists arrested, the caches seized. But a question lingered. How many others had learned the same techniques? How many more recipes were copied into notebooks or hidden away in forgotten drawers? Once an idea escapes into the world, it cannot be contained. For Russia, the trimethylphentanol case was both a tragedy and a warning. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are not forged in factories or smuggled across borders, but created quietly in the minds of those who believe they found a shortcut to power. And perhaps the scariest question remains. If knowledge was enough to nearly collapse a city in the 1990s, what happens today when chemistry is easier, faster, and more accessible than ever before?